Well, very good morning to all of you. Good morning. So was the coffee break good? Refreshing? Did you do the networking? So tell me, each one of you, how many new people have you met today? 1? 5? Wow. 10? 5. Wonderful. I'll clap for all of you guys. Wonderful. I think, therefore our objective at IWN to make sure that not only we have a large group of people, but equally importantly that we also have you connected together was a key objective, and that's being achieved. So while Suchitra Ella, who is now the chairman, can be congratulated on many counts, on one big count already, Suchitra, is the fact that you chaired IWN and you continue to do such wonderful job for CII. So thank you again. So what I'm planning to do is spend with you about 20 minutes or so talking about a few perspectives that I have and how one could win with women. So I titled my talk today, if somebody can put it up on the screen, as Winning with Women. That's what I said. Well, briefly, people call me a visionary, and I have some difficulty with that word. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter. She's turning 11, I believe, fairly soon. And so she's also started now surfing around and started reading material on the web. So she accidentally ran into my profile on the web. So she saw this first sentence saying that Mr. BVR Mohan Reddy, visionary leader. So I was reading something else, so she suddenly comes and taps my shoulder and says, I have a question for you. So I said, what is it like? So she said, people say visionary leader. What is a visionary? So I had to quickly rack up my brain and then said, visionaries are the people who see things that other people cannot see. So she turns all around and says, Tata, tell me, what is that you're seeing more than I can see right now? So that's very amusing of this little young lady, but thereafter I had to be very careful in people calling me as a visionary leader. But certainly I think we had vision in terms of seeing many things which many other people didn't see, and built a company in IT-enabled services. That's broadly where I get classified as. So what I wanted to share with you was this industry, which has been acclaimed to be extremely successful. I don't know how many of you are aware, in 1991, when India embarked on this path of globalization and liberalization, this industry was as small as $100 million. That's how it was. And then if you now fast forward, say 25 or 26 years thereafter, it became a $170 billion industry. B as a billion. And if you go back and do the math on your calculator to start with as what is the growth, the answer calculator would say it's an error. You can't have this amount of growth. But thereafter, if you look at compounded annual growth rates, it stands somewhere between 30 to 35%. But I personally think, and I will show you why, an important component or a constituent which made this dream possible for this industry is a stakeholder called women. And that made the difference for this industry to grow what it is and to where it is today. So therefore, let me start by showing you a few statistics as to how many people participate in the IT industry at this point of time. 1 out of every 3 in our companies is a woman. Whereas generally, you're talking about even taking care of the unorganized sector, it's more like about 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 is a woman today in this country. But more importantly, we created jobs which were extremely suitable for women. It's not the hard-working 8 hours of hard physical labor. It's more about the mental faculties which are challenged, and certainly created an environment which would still allow them to go back and continue to be productive at home too thereafter. And what we have also further seen is that these people who come to work, we created an environment which is safe and secure from them. So as a consequence of that, what we have seen is, over a period of last, say, 8 or 9 years, it grew even from a number called 21% to a little over 30%. Actually, some of the statistics now show it's about 34% of women are there in the IT industry. But one thing we also have to quickly highlight, whereas at the entry level, we have a fairly large number of women in our workforce. As we see them growing up, the management hierarchy or leadership hierarchy, one may like to call it, they drop off fairly quickly. So you look at the statistic at this point of time, by the time they become managers, it gets down to a number called 20%. By the time they become C-level executives, it's now down to almost less than 1%. One might say, is it extremely disappointing? Not necessarily, I believe. You see this slide. I've got some statistics about two so-called most liberal developed countries, United States and United Kingdom. There again, what we find is there's no more than about 57% of women have professional occupations, all right. But when it comes to IT industry, it's just about 24%. And we also find that in the Silicon Valley, which is the mecca of this industry, no more than 11% of them are women. And there again, we're talking about, and I'm sure all of you are getting ready to do a startup. In startup ecosystem, no more than 6% are the people who are in startup ecosystem, or 5%. And then in C-suite, it's about 6%. The story is no different in UK either. In UK, you'll find there's only 17% of workforce, as opposed to the 25% I talked about in US are women. And you'll also find that there is fairly large amount of stagnation in the middle-level management in the UK industry at this point of time with women. I just wanted to give you one more slide here to tell you how does it work in the other parts of the world. We found some surprising numbers, and there is a reason for the surprise that we find. The two countries, Brazil and Mexico, has a lot of women in IT workforce. Can you guess what the reason could be? The industry is itself very small, so therefore the percentages could be very misleading. That's how it is. The only one country that you have to pay attention to is Russia, and Russians have about 41.5%. So therefore, while this industry has certainly been very helpful for women, helpful in making sure that they build careers, we like to reassure you that it's not too far away from what the global truth is, while we feel that we need to do a lot more to women in this country. So therefore, what are the challenges that we have? As I mentioned to you, the pipe is very large. People like me today in companies like ours insist, demand that at least 50% of people at freshers level have to be women. But the realization of the truth is that we can't get more than 30% of them, even at freshers level. Because I have to definitely confess one thing, and you should also keep that in mind as people who work in companies, who manage people in companies, who are entrepreneurs, who are business leaders. You should definitely have lots of diversity in your groups, but don't compromise in terms of quality in the name of diversity. So therefore, I don't allow that to happen. I will emphasize we need more women to come by. I will do everything to pressurize my managers to do that. But never compromise, saying that if they say, Mohan, we have to have a cutoff number which has to be lower for certain groups of people, not necessarily women alone. We have lots of diversity issues that come to us, given that I run a company worldwide. We have businesses now in 31 countries across the world. And you know, what are the challenge yesterday in a review meeting which came up is, there's a notice that came to us about not employing enough of veterans in United States. And then it's not something which is earth-shattering. There's a process that we need to follow. We followed the process, did not find people, so therefore, at the end of it, obviously, we didn't have enough of them. That part goes back. So the complaints are many in terms of diversity. And again, in the name of veteran employment, you could not be compromised in terms of quality. So therefore, if you consistently keep the quality going, but at the same time, what happens is, given the dropouts that happen, the pipe becomes trickling in terms of water by the time you get to this C-suite level. There are, to me, two different levels of challenges. There's one level of challenge, which is the social challenge, because what we feel as a society still does not think men and women are equal. That's the major mindset that we have to change. I have a son and a daughter, grown up all right, but memories always don't disappear too quickly. My son is 41, my daughter is 36, but still I remember this classic example of theirs. My daughter was 5 years old. She comes to me and asks me this question, "Daddy, whom do you like more, my brother or me?" And the answer was, "Amma, I have two eyes. Do I like my left eye better than the right eye? Both of you are the same to me." That is what I think as a society we have to progress to, treating men and women alike. That's the first one. You then thereafter use your filters thereafter to say, I can say capability, qualifications, etc., etc. But I think socially that is one of the biggest challenges that we have. And then the second one is we don't have the mindset today which still says that the women have the responsibility to maintain the home. She has to look after everything. She has to cook for all of us. She has to care for all of us. But then you say, what is in return? So that way, Suchitra, pardon me, but I'll make a small suggestion. I'm a little disappointed that we don't see many men in this crowd. Kirangar is here, I can recognize him, but Sanjay disappeared, and I see Shakti here, but we should, no, because, yeah, I'm glad, thank you, Suchitra. But the point I'm making is that I think it's the men's mindset which also has to change for getting this women into the mainstream of our society. So the mindset could be so profound. Yesterday, it's as recent as yesterday, that at a board meeting of ours, there was a discussion about we decided, actually it was approved, we're giving a parental leave to the men folks when they have children. So there was a fairly serious debate on what this is about. And I should acknowledge this was the idea of the CEO of the company, a young man called Krishna Bodnapu. And Krishna's explanation was, to me, even revealing. He says, look, I asked this young man came with a big smile at 11 o'clock to my office with a packet of sweets. I asked him, what is this about? He said, sir, I was blessed with a son this morning. So I asked him, what did you do? So I went to the hospital, sir, at 10 o'clock. I saw my son. I came to work. An absolutely macho king, So he says, there itself, we are allowing him to say, I don't have any other responsibility towards the child. The woman had the baby, the woman staying in the hospital, I can come and work. My responsibility is over. I went and saw them, came away from there. That change has to come by. That change, I guess, we have to bring in as a society. And then, certainly there are social challenges in terms of mother-in-law, in terms of father-in-law. There are expectations that we all want nucleus families to be there. But all the same, that social change has to come by. And finally, not that there are any fewer in other parts of the world, but I think some of the barbaric incidents that we keep hearing and reading about in our lives in the recent past too, whether it's Kathua, it's the Unnao, or it's the Surat, there may be many more which are not there. I heard Sanjay Reddy a little while earlier, social media is bringing these things out. But that is good, it's bringing them out, but when will they stop? So that unless the society changes to say we are equal to each other and we will treat each other as equals, we would continue to have challenges. And then organizations also have a challenge. So you want to make somebody a project manager, and I've heard this somebody saying, no sir, she's going to go on maternity leave in another 6 months from now. So what would I do? But our ability, therefore organizations have to definitely change to make sure that these are essential parts of our life. We give people leave, right? Whether it's men or women. So are we saying that, look, when people go on leave, projects are getting stalled? No, they're not. They continue to progress with these projects. So similarly, we should say it's women who come to work. We are in a position to, women who are to go on vacation, can we not substitute people? To us, the other thing that, again, yesterday, this is the other revelation that we're doing, is our CEO was telling us all about his new scheme. People complete 20 years of service in a company, they get 3 months of paid time off. And then who is this? Actually, one of his business unit heads, who is a £500,000 executive in the company, is taking off. And I was talking to, I can share the name, John Renard. John, what are you doing 3 months? He says, vacationing, Mohan. I'm going boating, I'm renting out a home, and so on and so forth. And what is it about? We want to give people space for them to think and grow. Can't we not do the same thing with women too, saying that we can give maternity leave and still work could go on without any major challenge? But we have to definitely understand, because of this, the challenges we have is they drop off quite rapidly. We have instances where we tell them there is crash facility at this point of time, or we have paid time off with them. Some of their constraints in terms of the customers itself, we can't ask everybody to work from home. There are only certain departments which can work from home. But in spite of all this, there's a fairly large drop off. And certainly what we see is, because of the environment, the dropouts from women is increasing. So what is the priorities that we have done? Is that we ensured that the male employees display personal commitment to D&I. So actually, our diversity and inclusion is headed by a woman called Katie Cook, but her team has more number of men than women, because we think the problem lies there. It's not with the women. So what we organizations to do is that you need to have empowerment to ensure male employees display personal commitment. Especially the leaders are personally committed. And then we need to build the best practices, adopt equity process between men and women. We introduce programs that can understand, support, and protect women needs, provide especially a conducive environment for returning women, and provide opportunities to women to leverage their unique competencies in high business roles. So these are the things that the IT industry priority list was and continues to be. Let me share with you what we do in our company. Just to tell you about my company, I built a company with a number of individuals who contributed, and we just published our results yesterday. I saw lots of congratulatory notes this morning, and the constant reply I keep telling is that I'm not doing any work, the other people do work, and I get all the congratulatory notes. But somebody rightly pointed out, Mohan, if that is really true, that you're not doing work and you're getting the notes, truly you should be very proud of yourself because you have arrived in life. So that was very touching this morning. So we have this 26-year-old company with about 15,000 employees, 15,000 employees in 31 countries around the world. And we have women ratio now at about 27% is what we're running at. But in order to make sure what we are, in several ways, I believe we are considered to be a successful, sustainable company because we lasted 26 years. We've been a public company for 20 years, which means that we published 80 times our results, 80 quarters we published our results. Every quarter we made profit since inception. We now have a $1.2 billion or $1.3 billion market cap as the markets opened this morning. And we have a 4,000 crore turnover and a 400 crore net profit bottom line and 1,000+ crores of cash in the bank. But leaving that apart, but what made this happen is this big workforce that we have with us. What have we done? We've built a culture which certainly promotes that we are driven by one thing called values. I keep saying in my company, values first, F-I-R-S-T. We'll come back to how it plays back to women in a moment. What is F-I-R-S-T to us? Is fairness, respect, integrity, transparency, sincerity, and transparency or trust, whichever way you use it. So those are the values with which we fostered even development of women in the organization. We continue to leverage diversity, and I keep saying this, no nation would be successful unless women get empowered and participate in the development of the nation. Because you can't have a nation which has got 50% of people only working and say the nation is prospering. It had to be 100% of them. So with the same values, what we did was we made sure that we had more amount of women in the company and made sure that we did these three things in terms of sensitization, recruiting, and retaining people. Sensitization is what I started off as breaking down barriers. We keep constantly telling even these youngsters who come into the organization all about how do you respect women, how do you treat women. And at times, it becomes a little challenging, for lack of a better word, because some of the norms that go around in the world make us very nervous. Because the way in which you can talk to women, look at women, even that sensitization has to go on. There's no other choice we have. You can't look at certain parts of women for certain periods of time, and if somebody times it, in the United States, it's a crime. You can be sued for it. You could say, Mr. Reddy, what are you bothered about? A man looked at a woman and then there's a lawsuit that goes on between them. No, it happened in your premises. So the company also becomes a party to the lawsuit. Don't ask me, have you been into them? I wouldn't answer that right now. And then move on to recruitment. We make sure that we mask the names of people till the final interview comes by. So there's no bias in terms of recruitment of people. We are making sure that the agencies provide diverse candidate pools, especially even at the mid-level managers. We are insisting, at the junior level managers, at junior level entry positions, it's much easy. But at the lateral levels too, there is more amount of process to make sure that more amount of women come by. And number of things that are happening in terms of retention of women employees, whether it's flexi hours, job sharing, we talked about parental leave, and then sponsored events where people participate quite extensively. What further are we doing? We're doing a leadership development program. We want to make sure our women employees become leaders much more faster. We now have a program which is running as of, I think this is last year, 1st of October, we had about 30 people being trained, about 75 thereafter. We'll have a lot more group that comes in at this point of time. So it's not just getting more women employees, they have also to become leaders. And that is honestly a frustrating experience. I am trying my best at this point of time to get more amount of diversity into my board of directors. And no exaggeration, I will always be honest and transparent. I did my best in terms of searching for a women leader in this country. Well, not that they are not there, but you have to find one who is suitable to you. And that suitable person has to have the ability to say that, or has the time to say, I'll serve on your board. So we couldn't find one. Fairly concerning, all right, but at the same time, we went to United States and we have an outstanding leader called Andrea Beers, who was managing director of A.T. Kearney, a related company like ours. She stepped down from that role and she now serves on our board. And so also I think our CEO has about 12, so we have a 9-member board, there's just one woman, and yesterday one of the debate was we need to add one more, which we will. Or the second one is if you look at the 12-member leadership team that we have, there's only one out of the 12. So there again, we keep saying, no, we should definitely do that, and can be transparent. One new role, a role which opened up recently was our CIO role, Chief Information Officer. That's a part of the 12 leadership team that reports into the CEO. The CEO said, hell or heaven, I'll just get a lady at any cost into this role. Didn't happen. I think in the last few days, we made an offer to a man. So therefore, I think it is just not the organizations, you as individuals have to also gear up to this particular challenge, make sure you move forward. My most favorite employee, I have many favorites, all right, is this young lady called Beatrice Liptus. So the reason I like her is that 10 years back, we found my CEO of a German company called Martin Trostel found this young lady singing along with her wife in a Christmas choir. He met with her. He said, Mohan, she had talent. So he said, look, but I only have one hesitation, and you wouldn't allow this to go through. 10 years back, I still used to look at the recruitment process, especially high-powered recruitment. And the reason is she just has a music as major. And then the second one she did was a minor was in child psychology. So I was, by a strange coincidence, flying through Frankfurt. We met with Beatrice. I was very impressed with the values that she had. She was extremely transparent what it is. I knew how quick a learner she was. And what is it? 10 years later, she now is a business leader in the company and the managing director of our German subsidiary. So therefore, it is not men or women. If you have the talent, you will grow. So for now, please take that bias away from you saying that I'm a woman, am I anyway inferior to somebody? The answer is, I'll assure you, no, no, no. It's only a question of making sure that you take care of the opportunities. So what's my formula to all of you today? I see most of you are young, lots of careers ahead, ability to lead people and make sure that you have good govern organizations. Is number one is that, as I said just now, the glass ceiling is in your mind. You cannot be disempowered. You cannot be disempowered yourself, and ask the corporate to empower you. So where does the empowerment come from? It comes from you. Don't go back and ask somebody saying that I want this, I want that. You think that you're empowered to do it, automatically you will succeed. The second message I have is, do not be conscious of your gender, be conscious and confident of your capabilities. I think that message was strong, what I spoke about even earlier. A third one is, develop life skills through continuous learning. This is one big mantra I talk about to everybody these days. We live in a world where change has become constant. The pace of change is only accelerating. Mankind hasn't experienced the change that we are seeing today any time in the past. Will they experience in the future? Possibly yes. Will they experience it to be much faster than what it is? Possibly yes. So you have, irrespective of whether it's a man or a woman, a challenge. What you learned is disappearing tomorrow. What you are learning is not relevant any longer for your life. So only way that you can do is, to me, I keep saying learning is a continuous journey. It doesn't have a destination. As much as I talked about technology bringing about this change and being so disruptive that everything is changing, technology is also helping you in one other way. People like me, I belong to a generation, I wanted to learn. What did I do? I wanted to go and borrow a book. I went physically to the library, did not find the book in the library. So what did I do? Thereafter, I went to the librarian. And she would then pull out a card for me and say, Mohan, this book has already gone out. And there are 3 people ahead of me in the list. So which means it'll take me at least under 6 weeks before I get the book I want to read. I had the intent to learn. I have the ability to learn, but I don't have resources to learn. What is the great boon to all of you? I think about learning. If some idea came to me, looking at you, or thought that comes by, I promise you, I will go into sit in my car and Google around and find out the answers. So therefore, you are blessed because you can learn anytime, anywhere. So with that, let me conclude by saying the values to us in our company, values are first. I talked about fairness, integrity, respect, sincerity, and trust. And with this, in respect to women, we make sure that we are extremely fair to them and we respect them. There's a very famous quote of mine. It doesn't belong to me. I don't know. We searched. My EA is also here in the audience today. She even did a lot of search to find out who this quote goes to. I keep quoting it fairly often. And the quote runs like this: when I was born, the first person who touched me was my mother, who was a woman. When I started playing around, I played with a woman, who was my sister. When I started going to school, I was taught by a teacher, who was a woman. When I grew a little more, wanted to get married, I got married to my wife, who was a woman. And thereafter, I keep saying that, when I get old as I am at this point of time, I play all these tantrums around. The only person who can control me is my daughter, who is also a woman. And finally, when I disappear from this world, I'll go to the lap of my motherland, which is also a woman. So if you are a man, I keep saying, please respect women. And if you're a woman, be proud of yourself. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm not too sure how I ran in terms of time. I might have ran a little more than I had wanted to be, but I'll more than happy to take a few questions. Can I? 3 of them. Yes, ma'am, please.
I'm really impressed that you are able to nurture women, give them the equality in India. I don't know how it is globally, but I also work in the engineering industry where I try very hard to anchor women and bring them in. And we have the challenges in terms of our work. If you're in the bricks and mortar business, is very 9 to 5, that kind of business. So how does one deal with women, because they do have their family issues, and the first thing my guys will say, please don't keep the women, they will not come at that time, they want to take leave off. And for us as owners of the company, it becomes a challenge. So how would one deal with that, if you have any solutions? Secondly, you said that, you searched for women and you couldn't find any. Now, why didn't they match up to your needs? Was it lack of education? Was it lack of experience? Was it the lack of your being unable to connect because the system doesn't reach you out to women of capacity and capability? So,
sure. I'll answer both your questions. Thank you for asking good questions. The first one is, well, there is a constraint at this point of time of women being 9 to 5. But I always told my managers, and we also have some constraints of that nature, so long as you did planning ahead of time, then this doesn't become a constraint. They can leave at 5 o'clock. For example, in one of our businesses that we have with us, it still runs in 2-shift operation. The asset utilization, space utilization has to be high. This is to be do with digitization. We make sure that all the women, who almost constitute about 50% of the team, come only in 1 shift. That planning process is taken care of. The other half, which is men, rotate between the 2nd shift and the 1st shift. We tell them ahead of time that these are the working conditions. So therefore, men cannot complain saying that, look, the women come only in the 1st shift, whereas I am rotated between the 1st and 2nd. No, the part of the duties are so. So what we have seen, even for that matter, people want to go early. The young lady who helps me comes early in the morning, leaves ahead of me. But that's the part of the planning process that we have done. She made this request. I said, yes, I'll handle with it. So whatever work I have with her, I make sure that I finish off before she leaves at 5 o'clock or so. I'm typically there till about 7. not necessarily they should be there. So I think the key to it lies in this simple word called planning. If you plan, we can still manage it. You're certainly blessed in the sense that I belong to a generation where you said engineering industry. Women were prohibited to learn mechanical engineering. We didn't have anybody in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. I'm sure the younger crowd here are all smiles because some of you are mechanical engineering, mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. Till about 1990s, women were not allowed in engineering colleges. You didn't get allocation into mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. They were allowed to go into electronics, civil engineering to a certain extent, one or two of them. So that way, I guess, the population is larger. In terms of our board at this point of time, certainly, I guess, there are certain criteria, and making sure that people meet that criteria. I think the pool was very large that we went through, is first stumbling block. We've got to make sure that all the ticks are there in the boxes. And thereafter, we found some, but who are not ready to join us. Some of the people who are probably are in senior positions at this point of time, because our board job today for a Indian director involves about 3 days every 3 months. They come for 2 days, all right. Physically, they have to be here for 2 days. So in a year, and we have 5 meetings in all, including our budget board meeting as it's called, it runs out to about 15 days of commitment, which is roughly, say, we talk about 5% of their time. If you add reading, etc., which I'm not adding, about 5%. Where it comes to foreign directors, it becomes much larger. They do a week's trip every time they're here, every 3 months. So because of these commitments that they have, and some of they were willing to come, the boss said no. I can't even mention some of the names that I'm aware, that I like the people, they love my company, they said they're going to join us, but then the boss said no. Reasons best known to them. So that way it becomes very difficult at times. That's all the reasons I can give you. One more question? Yes, ma'am.
One quick question. You were mentioning that you were looking for a director and you couldn't get lady director in India. So did it ever, did we think about, can we have someone from within us, say from Cyient, who could really give us that kind of support as a director? Maybe we could train, if not immediately, in next 2 years, like a plan for future, so that we can also empower the team who have been with us. Say, you mentioned that one of the associate who has completed 20 years, they got 3 months. So senior level people or experienced who are loyal to the company, maybe we could plan. Did it ever occur?
Oh yes, it is. The fact that you saw those numbers, that we are right now training people, training as managers, training as leaders, training as directors. So a manager can't be a director on the board. So you have to go through the hierarchy.
Yes, exactly.
Because, not because of age, not because of anything else, because there are a lot of learnings that are there in this journey that goes by. So the result is, if you look at somebody like Katie Cook, who's now an L1 leader, who runs the off-road heavy vehicle transportation segment for us, sitting out of boys globally. The fact that she is in a remote location, not many people in this audience who know US even well would know about Boise, Idaho, but that's where she's based out of. And we gave her an opportunity. We saw, we are developing her. So is the case with Beatrice. She became managing director of Germany. She is very proud of it. The fact that I wouldn't be surprised, I don't know whether I'll be around or not, because it might take another 5, 10 years, I'm not too sure, but she could be another potential candidate. I'm just dropping names. But then, there could be many more people. So certainly, as a company, our belief is further that we got to look at talent inside as opposed to talent outside. And so you have seen that in a number of instances that people have grown in the company as opposed to bringing them from outside. So we will definitely take a session further. Thank you.
Thank you.
And my last question for the day, if that's what it is. Good. Thank you very much. Thank you, CII. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Suchitra. Today you actually have, you're very blessed people. You have such high-powered couples today coming and speaking to you. You saw Mr. Sanjay Reddy and Pinky Reddy. We have Mr. Kiran and Mrs. Shailaja. She probably stepped out for a minute, and a couple of more. And most importantly, Anu, Sriram and Sriram, sorry, Anu and Sriram are here. And more importantly, the more power couple that I talk about is my good friend Suchitra and my more dear friend Krishna Yalla. So you're all very blessed people. Give them a round of applause.